Welcome to Boys in the Hood TV. Today we're going to be discussing the life of Lil Neckbone from 8-9 East Coast Crips and how he would lose his life after returning back to his old hood. Ronald Givens, aka Lil Neckbone or Neckbone Deuce, was born on March 3rd, 1970 in Los Angeles, California. Neckbone would be raised on the east side of South LA in the notorious 8-9 East Coast Crips neighborhood. Now the 8-9s are an African-American street gang whose hood sits on 89th Street and Compton Avenue in the Firestone and Florence district. Now the 8-9s are a part of the East Coast Crips Alliance. And the East Coast Crips started back way in the early 70s and will become one of the deadliest Crips gang in the city of LA. Now the 8-9s are known to beef with gangs like Mad Swans, Family Swans, 9 Deuce Bebop, Avalons, and the Kitchen Crips. Now as a kid, Neckbone would attend Russell Elementary School, but as he got older, he would see the gang violence firsthand in his neighborhood, and it would only be a matter of time that he would get his put on to the set. By the early 1980s, Lil Neckbone would be active in the streets, getting his nickname after Big Neckbone. Now the 80s were one of the most dangerous times in LA to be a gang member.
Kill to be killed, that's all it is.
They come through here, blast me back.
Yeah, if I get killed, it's just one nigga gone. One nigga gone.
And the East Coast Crips were involved in numerous murders, shootings, robberies, and drug dealings. One incident in 1981, the East Coast Crips accused of shooting at the Hoovers, killing one teen, and shooting the other one in the mouth. Now in 1982, the East Coast Crips will become local stars when they will be featured in Michael Jackson's Beat It video. This would bring more spotlight to the East Coast Crips. Now the 8-9 East Coast were extremely active, and Lil Neckbone, at the age of 16, would end up catching his first case in 1986. He would be accused of pistol whipping somebody, but it wouldn't be until January 1987 when he would be arrested. He would be charged with a concealed firearm and 2 counts of assault with the firearm. Now he would spend some time in YA, but 7 months later, he will be released. Now that same year, 8-9 and the 7-6 East Coast Crips will be featured yet again in another Michael Jackson video. This will be The Way You Make Me Feel. Now this spotlight for the 8-9s will continue to happen. The following year, the 8-9 East Coast Crips, along with the 7-6s, will be featured in the Hollywood film called Colors that will debut in 1989. J-Bone and Bear from the East Coast will make their on-screen debut with small minor roles. Now by the time the 90s hit, Lil Neckbone was still frontlining as an 8-9 East Coast Crip. And at this point in time, the gang violence in California, specifically LA, had only gotten worse since the 80s. And Neckbone would find himself going in and out of jail on different offenses. But at the same time, he will be one of the most solid and respected 8-9s from the set. But only a few years later into the 90s, things would start to change for Lil Neckbone having his firstborn son. With this happening, this would lead to Neckbone being a little bit more cautious how he made his moves throughout the city of LA. But like many gang members, the streets are the streets and they don't change for anybody, and one false move could be deadly. A few years will go by and Neckbone will have another son. But in the midst of all the gang violence and his growing family, Neckbone will continue to hustle in the streets to provide and take care of his kids. Now in the 90s, he would lose a lot of homies to the streets. But like many other gang members out in the city, Neckbone would find himself behind bars. Now early 2001, Neckbone would lose one of his closest homies from 8-9 named J-Bone. Now at the time, there was an internal beef between 7-6 and the 8-9s, and it's believed that J-Bone went into 7-6 hood to try to dead the beef. But sadly, he would be shot and killed on 7-6's block. Now no one was ever arrested for his murder. Now eventually, once freed, Neckbone would start to focus more on his kids than being in the streets. He would eventually go on to get him a job working at an oil refinery. Now throughout the years, Neckbone would still hang around with his homies in the neighborhood so very often. But sadly, like a lot of OGs, it's hard to leave the streets alone. And in the summer of 2011, the one thing that Neckbone tried to avoid came knocking. On June 9th, 2011, Neckbone will be back on 89th Street. At around 4 a.m., Neckbone, while outside, will be shot and killed by one of his own homies. Police would arrive at the scene to find Neckbone's body. Now, there are a lot of different speculations on why this took place, but regardless, Lil Neckbone would lose his life to the streets.
He got killed June 9th. And I was like half asleep. And then he was like, thank you for giving me a second chance. I'm gonna get my life together and I'm coming back home. And I was mad because I didn't get a chance to really get that full moment because he was about to transition. And my mom, she came in the room, she told me. As soon as she told me that, nigga, my heart dropped. Went to the scene, seen my father there on the scene, man, it fucked me up. Still miss him to this day. Like, sometimes I could even smell that nigga cologne or like, I could hear his voice. You know what I'm saying? So